Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Hello there, guys. Hope we are all well. So today we are going to talk about the presentation station. I'm doing an interview series, so basically how to appear in medical interviews, training interviews, and how to navigate your way through these. I've done 2 videos already, one about the interview in general, and number 2 about the clinical station. So we're not going to talk about other stations today. Today we are going to concentrate on the presentation station. Before I start talking, let me just tell you that this is the station people are most worried about. This is the station people are most anxious about because it's the fear of unknown. You don't know what they're gonna ask you. You don't know if you'll know the topic or not. First things first, let me tell you what happens in this station. When you walk to this station, the first thing you'll see is a topic being given to you. Sometimes they will ask you to prepare a presentation on a whiteboard. Other times they'll give you an A3 size sheet of paper and ask you to prepare a presentation on that. You may have multicolored markers available or pencils. You may have a scale or not. There will be a timing clock sometimes there's not. So you prepare your presentation, so you have to think about the topic and also start writing straight away. Once you prepare the presentation, then you are asked to deliver that presentation to the panel of interviewers. And the last thing that most people forget and most people tend to ignore is the question bit. In each presentation station, you need to allocate some time to questions, so let audience ask you questions. And if you don't do that, you lose out on marks. The most important bit and the easiest way to navigate this station is to first identify what actually are they trying to judge at this station. The first thing, the most common misconception is they're judging your knowledge. No, they're not. They've got a separate station for that. They've got the clinical station where they bring you in and they ask you specific questions about your clinical knowledge. This station is about your knowledge of presentation. Number 1, your body language. Number 2, your communication skills. Number 3, your awareness of the whole process of presenting a topic and your time management. So let's break it down. Once you enter that room where you're going to prepare for the presentation, when you've got an A3 size piece of paper, have this in your mind. Each presentation has a structure. If you give that structure to that presentation, that gives you points for being prepared, your awareness of the whole process, the structure of your presentation, and your organizational skills. So important thing to keep in mind is every presentation has an opening, then it has a body, and then it has an ending or closing. So introduction is you introducing yourself, who you are, also identifying who your audience is. So today I am going to talk to you who are a bunch of high school students or medical students about XYZ topic. So that is how you open your presentation. Number 2, every adult learner needs to know what you're going to talk about. So today I am going to talk to you about pros and cons of being in medicine, pros and cons of being a surgeon. Then you go to the body of your presentation. At the same time, you need to concentrate on your body language, how you're going to present each of those parts of your body. The important thing here is if it's pros and cons, make a heading of pros, make a heading of cons. You may have to divide your paper into halves. You may have to produce a mind diagram and stuff like that, basically to use as a visual aid. And that is something else they mark you on if you've used audio, visual, or figures or diagrams to explain your points. An important thing to mention here is, for example, if you're advocating surgeons, so how it is good to be a surgeon, and they might want you to talk about pros and cons. Do not concentrate on cons here a bit too much, because then you may not sound as enthusiastic for the job. So you also need to sound very enthusiastic about the whole topic. You need to show the enthusiasm and composure which is expected out of, for example, being a surgeon. So the body of your topic, doesn't matter what it is, it has to be structured, number 1. And number 2, do not worry about the knowledge of the matter too much. I once got asked in an interview to talk about knife crimes in schools, and I knew literally nothing about that. The closing of your presentation is, number 1, you summarize whatever you talked about. Number 2, you thank the audience and invite them to ask you questions. Now, in this kind of setting, you usually close by summarizing first and then asking if they've got any questions, because you know they're going to ask you questions in this station because they're separate marks for the question. However, normally what you're advised to do is ask the questions first and then close formally. So there's a definite end, a definite stop to that whole process of presentation. So this is one thing that they're testing you on, your organizational skills, your speaking skills. So your communication should be good. If you go through the book that I suggested in my previous video, it talks about some powerful phrases and some keywords that you are supposed to say in your presentations. Basically, that kind of delivers the idea that you know what you're talking about. You know how to present different topics. You have been in the game for a long time and you're experienced enough to deliver a presentation. So use those key phrases, your power phrases, and get good verbal and communication skills. Time management is something else. So you, for example, if you are given 20 minutes for the whole station, you may be told that 10 minutes is preparation time. So in 10 minutes, what I would do is 5 minutes of very quick run through the whole topic, and then 5 minutes of writing it down on a piece of paper. Or you may want to do a minute of thinking, minute of writing. So it's sometimes easier to write everything at the same time. Or as you think headings, you put the headings on paper, fill the headings or gaps in between afterwards. The next 10 minutes, for example, out of 20 will be for your presentation. So do not be mistaken. It usually says presentation, but that time for presentation is divided between you presenting and audience asking questions. So if you present for a whole 10 minutes and audience doesn't get any time to ask you questions, you're going to lose those marks which were allocated for answering your questions. Also, if you then spend 8 minutes presenting and only give audience 2 minutes to answer questions, that is also not going to go down well, because your time management skills have not been great here. So what you have to try and practice to do, give 5 minutes, 50% of your time to presentation, 50% of your time to answering questions, because you will find out a lot of marks in these stations are answering those questions. For example, if you get a 5-minute queue, you need to be able to finish within a minute of that. Okay. Now, how do you time yourself? Very important. Sometimes there'll be clocks available. Sometimes they will give you cues that, you've got 5 minutes left or you've got 4 minutes left. But sometimes there'll be no cues and you have to use your internal clock. And the best way to practice for that is practice. That is what I say about this station. You need to practice as much as you can. Practice different topics in front of a mirror. How do you find out what topics could be asked? Go back to people who have done the interview recently. Ask them what did they get asked to present. And usually it's the same recurring topic which comes again and again over the years. Number 2, look at interview books and you'll find out different topics that have been asked from the audience. Practice in front of the mirror. Time yourself when you're practicing, and then try and adjust your internal clock so you're not overrunning those 5 or 10 minute mark. Once you practiced on your own, go and practice in front of an easy audience, for example, your friends, your colleagues, and it doesn't have to be a medic. You can present in front of literally anyone who knows anything about, public speaking, and they can tell you what they found good and what they would like you to work on. And once you've done that, go and present in front of a difficult audience. It could be your senior colleagues, it could be your clinical director, your consultants in the department that you work in. If you go and ask very politely and say, can I please practice some presentation station with you, and can you ask me some questions, just to challenge me a bit, and I'm very sure a lot of them will be quite happy to help you, because that is the culture here. People try and help you, but you need to ask for help. How do you know what time you will get to prepare the topic? Now that's an important question. Usually, whatever recruitment center you're applying to will have some guidance online about, what topics, what stations you'll be asked to perform in. And if that is the case, they'll tell you what time is allocated for each station. And I strongly suggest you go and visit the documents on their websites, because on these documents, they give you very clear details sometimes about what is expected out of you, how much time you'll be given for preparation, how much time you'll be given for presentation, what are you being tested on. And sometimes some of them are good enough. For example, me in anesthesia, they give you a marking sheet which basically tells you what are you being marked upon. So basically you've got a cheat sheet in front of you. Last important question that is asked: what kind of topics do you get. Now, let me be completely clear here. The topics can be related to your profession in general. The topics can be related to your profession in specific. For example, in general, they might talk about medicine. You might be asked to go and present pros and cons of being a doctor to a bunch of high school students. I was asked to present pros and cons of being an anesthetist, or what it takes to be an anesthetist, to a bunch of medical students. Or the topic might be completely vague. For example, as I said, I got a topic of how you would reduce knife crime in a local school. The best way to do is speak to your colleagues, speak to people who have done the interview recently, speak to people who have done the interview in the last year or 2 or 4, and ask them what kind of topics they got asked or what kind of topics their colleagues got asked, and try and prepare for those topics. You are being tested on, number 1, your body language, number 2, your communication skills, number 3, your time management, number 4, your organization skills, number 5, your know-how and knowledge and experience with the whole process of presentation, number 6, the structure of your presentation, number 7, the audio visual aids and facilities you use to aid your presentation, and so on. So that was a brief explanation of how you can tackle your way through a presentation station. If you've got any questions, leave them down in the comments below, and we will talk further about other stations in coming videos. Subscribe to the channel please, and like us. Take care and all the best. Allah Hafiz.